What's up, STS Nation? No show open today because I couldn't find the right button. So we are just kicking it off. No show open, no countdown. And what a wild surprise it is. By the way, this is Survive and Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And here, a show so good. It happens every Friday. Great Scott, it's your True Crime Phil. We haven't had the two of these guys. I think this is like the second week, third week. But we did hear from the great Fil Waters that he is out of town with his grandchildren, and therefore he wasn't supposed to be here. And then when I popped over, lo and behold, the great Fil Waters, Uncle Phil, is in fact here. And I had invited Dr. Detective Troy Looney. It could get awkward if he pops on, but we'll have Dr. Detective come in as well. Dr. Detective wasn't feeling great, so I'm not sure if the COE talked to him about this. This is going to be sort of an interesting show. It's something that Scott has talked about already, and I got riled up in the last show, so I'm not completely myself. I'm trying to calm myself down. Your governor, Scott Duffey, irritated me, and I'm trying to breathe. Would you ever believe that Fil Waters, could you ever believe that a politician would be untruthful about something potentially?
That's a rhetorical question, right? No, I will tell you, in terms of politicians and the stuff that comes out of their mouths, I use politicians' examples for deception in my interview classes. So, Scott, in April, you're going to see some of those examples, and so yeah, they're great when you're teaching an interview class. If you want examples of deception, they are the best people to go to.
That is absolutely fascinating. You just heard Fil Waters, who's among the greatest detectives, homicide detectives to ever do it, saying that he actually uses politicians for examples of people who are not telling the truth. Well, I'm not going to go into the whole Ellen Greenberg thing, but I'll just tell you, it's a case that's been going on 14 years. You guys know about it peripherally. Scott has been following it, I think, closer. Stabbed 20 times, one wound at least is post-mortem. You now have an independent pathologist who's saying that they believe she was strangled. She had many bruises believed to be from a DV situation all over her body. She had a bag ready to be packed. The governor of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania knows all these facts. The medical examiner originally on that case, and this story, by the way, is very similar, but the original ME on that case came out on Saturday with a court-approved document signed by him, a verification document saying that and he now believes, after getting some more information, that this was not a self-unaliving. And so Brian Enton of News Nation went over and confronted the governor, and the governor went on for 5 minutes gaslighting, selling half-truths and complete falsehoods. And it's incredibly frustrating, incredibly aggravating. But in my opinion, if it gets enough traction and their big media outlets now picking up on this, this will destroy Governor Shapiro's aspirations of becoming president of the United States one day. He has the ability to put things back on course, get a proper investigation here. And so far, he's defending what I believe to be a cover up here. So that's enough of that. This is who we're talking about. By the way, Scott Duffey, what are you? When I flew up to Philly for the Ellen Greenberg civil suit that never happened because they settled, they were playing the Eagles fight song on my flight. And then I don't know what you call him, the crew chief, the head of the flight attendants, he got on the microphone on the plane while we're at 30,000 feet, and he proceeded to tell everyone he's a giant Kansas City Chiefs fan and he's rooting for the Chiefs. And all the people on the plane booed him and were pelting him with peanuts or whatever they had. I know you're excited for the game. I know you are not a caveman like some of these fans in Philadelphia, that you're a decent, proper human being. with that said, where are you watching the game, and are you convinced that your team will win this year?
What was that, Joel? I couldn't hear you. What?
Go Eagles, fly Eagles, fly, as they say.
Of course, the Eagles are going to win. Yeah.
By the way, half of these potential jurors, because there was supposed to be a voir dire, were in Eagles jerseys and sweatshirts in the Philadelphia City Hall courthouse. But Duffy, what is your prediction for a final score here?
Oh, you know what? My son does scoring. I'm lousy at scoring. All I can say is Eagles win, Chiefs lose.
I love it. By the way, that's a Philly thing. The alls I can say, that's a South Jersey Philly thing. You'll never hear that in any other part of the country. I guess it's like an equivalent to y'all down south. Fil Waters, are you going to root for Philadelphia or Kansas City here? I'm going to root for my friend Scott's team, even though I am a Giants fan, and Giants fans are supposed to hate Eagles fans and vice versa. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Fil Waters. We're trying to... Fil Waters, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Oh.
Now you're unmuted.
I'm not muted on my side. That's weird.
Oh, maybe I think the COE was doing it because maybe she heard some kids in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she apologized.
So, it's always my, I always make the effort to be uncontroversial. Hey, Troy.
Troy is here. Hold on. Wait, what happened? I'm trying to add him here. Hey, Troy, how are you?
Yeah.
This is a party now.
There he is.
Phil was not supposed to be here, Troy, and you I asked you to step in. And I know you're not feeling well. We want you here, but if that shoulder, is it your shoulder?
Well, it's actually a pinched nerve, shoulder, or my garage door broke, so I've been lifting the door up and down for a couple of days. Right, trying to be a tough guy. So we have it fixed now. The door's fixed and I'm broken. But I'm good. I'll be all right.
All right. Well, anyway, Scott and Phil, and we're going to talk about this case, but we're talking about the Super Bowl right now. Phil, go right ahead.
So in my effort to always remain uncontroversial, I will have to say that go Chiefs. I'm hoping for the three-peat here. I love Scott like a brother, but and in most cases we are in complete agreement. But on this one, we are completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. So, and I have a little attachment, to the Kansas City Chiefs because they were once the Dallas Texans. And when they moved in the expansion to Kansas City and became the Chiefs, they came out of Texas, and then the Dallas Cowboys formed at that time in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs were in the AFL. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the first Super Bowl was between the Kansas City Chiefs and I think the Green Bay Packers, maybe. But so I'm a Kansas. When it's not the Cowboys, I'm a Chiefs guy.
There you go. I got to ask you, Dr. Detective, who are you rooting for here?
I just want to see a good game. I'm not taking sides. I'm staying neutral. I don't like the Browns either. So
smart.
The true diplomat there from Dr. Detective.
Yeah. Right.
COE, we're going to need the apartment photos, please. That's the most important thing for this. But all right, so let's kind of dive into this. It's a weird day. I just was yelling at people in the other show, which I don't like to do. And by the way, I don't want to compete, Dr. Detective, but I've mentioned a time or two on the show. It's been about 10 weeks now that my neck, I don't know what happened. It is destroyed. I went and got an MRI, and nothing's helping, but I need to. And then Carm, my mother calls me last night. I'm supposed to be a middle-aged man. And this is what she said to me, screaming. And it starts, Joel. And she said, if you get a shot in your neck and end up a quadriplegic and you need to use one of those tubes to blow yourself to move around in a wheelchair, I'm never helping you and I'm never talking to you again. Don't dare get a shot in your neck. It's too dangerous. That's my life. Phil, your reaction to that, Phil?
Well, I'm always, we always have to have Joel's wine time here at the beginning of the show. So uh, you know, either way you go, you're going to need to man up, Joel, and either take the shot and suffer with the consequences, or don't take the shot and suffer with the consequences. But it will give you. I'm kind of on your. I understand your mother, and having read your book, by the way, we just finished the book.
No, thank you,
So
Phil. That means a lot.
And having met Carm in person and had a really great discussion with her, and really understanding her, where she comes from, and just the amazing strength of that woman, I'm going to have to side with her general recommendation to you, which is man up, quit being a wuss, and you know,
Yeah.
whatever you end up doing, don't whine about it.
Yeah. By the way, I think I'm raising kids like myself, which is a problem because my daughter, the other day, I'm looking for my neck pillow. By the way, we're getting to Suchir in a minute, I promise. But I have a special neck pillow now, and it was missing. And I was irate. I'm like, where is my neck pillow? And lo and behold, the COE says, I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want you to get mad. But Vita, who is my oldest, said that her neck was bothering her and she had a basketball game the next day. And so she wanted the neck pillow. So maybe I need to toughen up so I don't raise snowflakes for kids. But she stole my neck pillow. One final question that we're getting in the story. Scott Duffey, if I did get this epidural in the neck and God forbid something happened and I was no longer mobile, would you come to my aid? At least at times like CrimeCon, would you come to my aid and take care of me? I'd have to fly there with special assistance.
I would help you through the podcast. So I would help you. I would absolutely do what I can do to.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. So this is the story. And of course I can't find my other set in. Oh, here they are. This is great. Just found my notes. So Scott Duffey was on about this with the parents. There is this person here, and it is right here. Suchir Balaji. Balaji is the correct pronunciation. This guy was a literal child prodigy. 2 years old. Phil, there is a little noise, so I'm going to mute you, and then I'll unmute you. You don't have to worry about it. So Suchir at 2 years old, Dr. Detective and Phil, he was speaking in full complex sentences. At 11 years old, he builds his first computer. He actually grows up in Cupertino, California, which is the home of Apple computers. So, he fit right in. We had the mom on. She said at 13, he was coding at such a high level that it was beyond a lot of people's understanding, like professional wise as well. So he gets an internship at OpenAI, which was supposed to be exactly that, an artificial intelligence company that was kind of crowdsourced. Sam Altman, who runs that, at some point, he decides to switch to a for-profit company, and slowly but surely, Suchir becomes more and more disillusioned. And one of the things that really bothered him was that the company was breaking copyright laws. So essentially, you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to do a story on Suchir Balaji. Can you please pull up his article in the New York Times and give me a detailed breakdown? And it'll do it for you, but it's stealing the New York Times content. And so he found this to be a conflict. So he blew the proverbial whistle. He does that and speaks to the New York Times. On top of that, 1 week before he is found dead in his apartment, he's named as sort of the primary witness in a lawsuit that names Microsoft and OpenAI, and he is a witness against them. Exactly 1 week later, he's dead in his apartment. So that lays the groundwork. And Scott Duffey, to you spoke to the mother and father. They were on my show. Now that you've had a couple of days to digest this, look, he could have caved, under the pressure, the enormous pressure of being a key witness in a case against these behemoth companies. He did purchase a gun for self-protection that his mother actually encouraged him to do back in January. Now we're talking about a death in November. But now that you've had time to digest this, Scott Duffey, what are your latest thoughts? And by the way, the family, the latest news is that they're suing the city of San Francisco because they are not being transparent with police reports, FOIA requests, things of that nature. But Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. So an amazing family. It's amazing and a credit to you, Joel, that you're able to bring these people together during their low time and be able to give them a voice to do whatever they can do. They're seeking the truth. Would they, as Phil and Troy, I know, can tell you a lot more, but I've had my share where you do go to suicide scenes. And Phil and I have talked about this numerous times, where you should treat every death scene as if it's a homicide. As if homicide is being called for a reason, thereby those who initially responded say, hey, this is something that looks beyond that of natural causes, etc., whatever have you. So in this regard, at least from the pictures that I've seen, and there's very few, and they're very particular. In other words, they don't show the whole scene, so it's very difficult to give any credible advice. But I told the parents this: if she is witnessing police go in and she does not see a flurry of detectives, she does not see a crime scene unit, she is treated at arm's length, she's kept at bay, she doesn't find out about the death of her son except through a third party while she's there, that's disturbing to me. And the fact that they came with a conclusion, hey, there's suicide, nothing to see here, I would push back as well. Though family members often are the last to ever choose or accept, because of the many emotions of a suicide, unaliving determination by investigators. With that being said, it does not seem like due diligence was given here, and there it is a sloppy scene, and so it begs the question: let's do this the long way and get this right. And I feel like something was skipped, which leads us to, with everything else going on in his personal life, professional life, it begs for further investigation.
Yeah. By the way, this comment warms my heart from Alicia Elliott. I cannot tell you how much STS Fridays show brightens my day, even when the topic is dark, which it typically is. The camaraderie between the guests always makes life better. I agree. Now, of course, we can never win. And last time I had Phil and Dr. Detective on, and I'm only saying this because I wanted to defer to Phil, but I just want to show you some of the insanity that I deal with. So one of the comments suggested that first of all, I get yelled at when it's just Phil and Scott, because I ask, allegedly, sometimes the ratio is disproportionate with more questions to Phil. So then I had to balance it out with Scott. Last time, the comment was, you asked Phil more questions. You know what that means. And he was implying, Dr. Detective, that perhaps I have a racist bone in my body, and I'm asking the white guy more questions than the black guy. Let me just say to that person, F right off. I am a big fan of my black brethren. I grew up with all of them. I have a lot of black friends this day, and everyone can kiss my you know what. Here's the COE yelling at me. So anyway, that drove me crazy. So with that said, because I knew I'm going to get a comment like that again, I'm going to go to Phil, and then I'm coming to Dr. Detective, because Phil has investigated 400 plus homicide / death scenes. Now the COE is going to be, oh boy. Anyway, Phil, this family is now suing the city of San Francisco because they say that they are now claiming it is both a closed and an open investigation, and they're trying to get public records. And they're like, we can't get records because they're claiming to one entity that it's an open investigation, to the other that it's a closed investigation. And to Scott's point, they go there and, they go into this apartment. They're done within 40 minutes. They're out. They give the keys to the mother, and it is ruled a self-unaliving. There is no ruling out of a homicide. They give them the scene, kind of like in the Greenberg case, the keys to the apartment, say, take care, see you later. Your reaction to that?
So let me first make a comment about what you last said about the crap that you took.
Look at this. Sherry says, why do you even... It just drives me crazy, man, because people like to stir the pot. And if people knew me personally and who my friends were in this world, they would understand.
Well, I am right with Sherry B, because you do not need to address these jackasses.
Okay.
These people are a bunch of trolling virtue signalers who wet the bed on a regular basis, and they live the most sad lives that anybody could live. They have no sense of humor. They have no understanding about the dynamic. Look, the four of us right here today, we all have a mutual respect for each other, and it has nothing to do with what flavor we are. Mm-hmm. So, I would just say, quit addressing these people. This is what they want. They want the attention. So they need to get out of their parents' basement. Have mom make them a PBJ and chill a little bit.
Yeah, so, you're probably right. I don't know. I'm just annoyed today. I'm trying.
I know I'm right. I'm right. Quit addressing these jackasses.
By the way, Geo Profiler's on the second channel right after this, 3:00. This is a triple header. Go ahead, Phil. So the city again, close, open, open.
Your question. So this happened last November, correct?
This past November, correct? A few months ago.
Okay. So we're just talking 1, 2, 3 months ago.
Correct.
Now, and I am glad in the sense that the family is making has these questions at the front end of this thing, rather than like the Greenberg case, which has gone on ad nauseum for 14 years. So this is good. These issues are being, I know they were raised then, but we got a time frame now, which is immediate. And it's my understanding that the mother was at the scene, correct?
Yeah.
When they, because she was doing welfare checks and all of that. And then when she was at the scene, I think I read where she knew when the vehicle showed up that was not an ambulance, and they brought his body out on the gurney in a bag, she knew then that this was the most horrific outcome possible. And I have worked, I've been hired to work for folks that had suicides in the family to make sure, at least quantify for them that, yes, this is in fact what this was. And I know that early on here, they've already hired someone, right, to look at this and so forth and so on. So, and I don't believe the last reading I took was that the autopsy report has not even been completed. Is that still the case?
Scott, I don't know that it's not been completed, but it has not been released. I know that.
Not released, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought I read where it had not yet been completed, but even as that goes on.
Well, can I just jump in there ignorantly? If an autopsy is not completed, how do you rule it something within 40 minutes? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, I don't know if they ruled it within 40 minutes. The autopsy ruling, there's always an initial ruling that this is what it's going to be, and once they've got to get tox tests back and so forth and so on. So before they have an official ruling of the the suicide or whatever the case may be.
By the way, Pat Tech is saying it's not completed because of the tox report here.
Okay, well, that's what I thought I read. So the tox test for some, well, they always take a further, time to get back. But so in this case now, so my question is, did they have detectives at the scene? Was this actually worked as what Scott's already talked about, a suspicious death scene, where we're going to work it as a homicide, regardless of what it ends up being? And what I have read, of course, is that he did some things that, and his behavior was such that at first blush, it is certainly possible that that's what happened here. And I talked about last time that families, and Scott alluded to it, families do not want to accept a suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just the nature of people. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the way things are. And I have sat with those families and tried to explain to them, this is where the evidence leads. There's nothing here. And I've got no dog in the fight. I'm being completely objective about this. So I'm just suggesting that may be what's happening here, because this is so fresh. I don't think we have a full perspective of the case overall because it is so fresh. So the investigation is not over. That's why they're not releasing records. Law enforcement never releases records in the middle of an open investigation. I've never understood this business about in the middle of an officer-involved shooting investigation, they're releasing body cam videos. I don't get that. That's evidence. Yeah. That should not be released until that investigation is completed. But be it as it may, so you gotta start at point A, and now we're going through B, C, D. So I know they're already filing lawsuits, they're doing this and that, and I think that is a little premature.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that the results are going to come any quicker. Like I said, they don't even have the autopsy report. Yeah. They're waiting on the tox test. So I'm going to be interested to see what he had in his system when this act occurred. And so there's just a lot of questions here that are yet to be answered. They got to follow the evidence, and to say that offhand that they're not conducting a proper investigation, well, I don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know what they're doing, what they've done, and what they're going to do. So right now, the jury's still out on where this is headed.
Well, Fil Waters, Scott and I were speaking very highly of you. So if you get a call from Purnima Ramarao or Balaji Ramamurthy, the parents, they might hire you here to figure this all out. I just want to let them know that we are thinking of them. Very sweet family.
Sure.
And yeah, very, very sweet and very intelligent.
Yeah, don't misunderstand me. I'm not minimizing the tragedy. I've already shared with that type of event occurring in my own family. So trust me, I am sympathetic, empathetic to where they are, and I understand it.
Yeah. I just want to apologize.
They hear the good, bad, and the ugly.
I want to apologize to them for me, because Purnima and Balaji, Fridays are always a little quirky, so that's why I was a little wacky off the top. I'm going to send this to you, and I know you're going to watch it, so forgive me for the first 28 minutes, and now we're hopefully going to talk about this series. I didn't realize it went that long. Dr. Detective, here's a question from Peppermint. Do you all know it's very common for a law enforcement officer to be present during an autopsy? What about that? I always see that in the movies where they're always talking to the pathologist.
Yes, absolutely. It is common practice for us to send someone or plan for someone to attend the autopsy. In every case, even suspicious death, suicide, or unaliving, or whatever the case may be. So yes, we send someone to the examiner's office. That is actually scheduled. They notify us before it's going to happen, and we make sure someone's there. In that process, we're kind of on standby. Should they have any questions about the scene, about potential evidence, depending upon the type of maybe trauma that is apparent or something that is clearly visible, they may ask those kinds of questions. and or just kind of have us as support for them to start the process. Of course, they take their own pictures, contingent upon whether if it's an unaliving possibility, the hands will be bagged typically. So there's a lot of different factors for testing purposes, but yeah, that is very common.
Yeah. And Dr. Detective, one of the questions that's been asked and answered is apparently, according to the ruling, which is a self-unaliving, it was sustained by a single gunshot, and we'll get into the trajectory in a minute. But apparently, there was no GSR, as you guys call it, no gun residue on his hands. What does that tell you? Does that tell you anything? I mean, as an
So
investigator.
again, as investigating, so GSR gunshot residue has been determined to be kind of inconclusive because depending upon the nature, position, type of weapon, even it's inconclusive, and not my scientific definition, but Bill and Scott can attest to that. It's a part of the investigation that we do check for as a maybe circumstantial piece of evidence, but it's not the end all be all. So we've had cases where people have been standing in proximity and have had GSR on their clothing or what have you. And that could happen at a gun range. Maybe there's fireworks or explosives involved. Just depends on the time of year and the setting. And every scene is different. So Phil could definitely speak to that. I'm sure both gentlemen.
Yeah, and Dr. Detective, to you again. So just because they both commented, I want to give you a chance. Scott was here when we spoke to the parents. They tell us, and it's been widely reported again, that police were in and out, I guess within 40 minutes, and literally handed them the keys. Like, they are still renting that unit, and it is still, they left it as is because they want their own investigator who they've hired to go in there. I mean, I guess from a law enforcement standpoint, but also from a compassion and human point of view, what do you make of that? That apparently they were in and out 40 minutes. They ruled a suicide, basically hand back the keys. There's that component, but also, don't you need to rule out, like you rule out suspects, don't you need to rule out that it is not a homicide?
Absolutely. So everything's in question. Everything is in play. Again, common practice, patrol responds to the scene or is notified. However, the person is found by that person. So we're going to conduct interviews. Like, how were they found? How was it reported? Again, that scene is secured by patrol. Next, detectives are typically called out and or medical examiner. We kind of arrive in tandem or simultaneously sometimes. But when detectives arrive, we're investigating or taking the torch from patrol essentially, and looking at the scene, looking at interviews, who needs to be interviewed, who lives here, who actually is in control or physical control of the apartment, occupied, single family home, whatever the type of location is, right? So we want to make sure we have, first of all, the right to search, the right to process, search authority as it's called commonly, and then we're going to secure that. If it possibly could be an unaliving, we're going to secure it, still call the medical examiner out if it is in fact at that time what appears to be well, we don't really know what it is, really. I can't say what it appears to be, but you have indicators by the evidence and by the scene. But we're going to hold the scene, medical examiner takes over, so they're now in possession of the scene, or the body would be their scene essentially. We're still managing and working collaboratively for everything else: video surveillance, interviews, neighbors,
Got it.
witnesses, and so forth. So it's a collaborative effort.
And by the way, video surveillance, there were two apparently entrances to this building that were not under video surveillance. And there's some kind of contradiction between authorities and the family. They say that they checked video, but apparently, again, two entrances don't have video. By the way, Fil Waters, the first thing he said is there's no way we'll be done in an hour. I said we sort of have to be today. Suddenly it is 1:39, which gives us 21 minutes. Scott is definitely tapping out, I think, at 2. We might go a little bit. Scott's got the Super Bowl. He's got to meditate. But maybe if Dr. Detective and Phil want to stick around, I have a vet, not me personally, but my dogs do, a vet appointment for Fred and Ethel. And so I got to get out of here for that, but we'll figure it out. We'll probably go a little bit extra, but if you see Scott flip the Eagle Bird at 2 p.m. and top off, that's why. Annie K to Scott. The problem with these similar suspicious cases of self-unaliving is that the crime scene is damaged to affect a potential trial, even if new evidence is brought forward later. That's an interesting comment because you said this, I think, when you were speaking to them. People have walked through this apartment. They've walked into this apartment. They still have the blood poolings there and all this, but it is not, I guess, like a pristine crime scene. It is far from it. I'm going to start to bring up some pictures of the scene itself. But go ahead, Scott, to this question.
Yeah, and he's right, and that goes well beyond an unaliving case. So it's in any crime scene or something that is being worked as a crime scene till it's determined that a crime didn't take place. It could be an accidental death. I've been, and as a matter of fact, an agent of ours. It was a horrific scene because of blood everywhere. And then and so the first thought is this is not an accidental or whatever have you. And then the scene speaks, right? The evidence is protected. The scene is secured, and everything is put together in the narrative, and in the end ended up being a horrible, tragic, accidental death. This could be an accidental death. It could be an unaliving. It could be a homicide. I think, and as speaking with you guys a couple of days ago, we're going by what is being told to us that's publicly out there. The family, the mother who is watching the apartment, she is seeing things come and go. But with that being said, and I am hoping that this is a huge miscommunication between law enforcement and her and his father. The fact that there are things that haven't been said, but it will come out to be that this is thoroughly investigated and so forth. That's my hope. But from what we're hearing, it doesn't. There are missteps and miscommunications. And a scene to me, that would be left and given the keys to her within a very short period of time, is disturbing. So anytime a crime scene is left unsecured, and that's, I understand the mother saying, well, she put a camera in there. That's fantastic. But it is still unsecured. And that will always weigh. If this does determine to be something other than unaliving, it is something that would be difficult to present into a courtroom just because the scene has been left.
Allison Adams here. Thank you, Scott. We do know, Phil, that the SFPD, San Francisco Police, not been back to Suchir's apartment since they discovered the body. San Francisco PD told the family that they have closed the case, but they told the public, as in reporters mainly, that the case is still open. These are some of the pictures. So there was also, and Phil, I'm coming to you in a second, that there was also a private investigator who was hired. And that person is saying that blood spatter is suggesting a struggle, that there's blood. You see here, there's pooling. This picture was sent to me by Purnima. This is a lot of pooling in one corner here. But apparently there were suggestions of a struggle with blood spatter in multiple locations. I mean, I am no detective, but what Scott was saying sort of triggered a possibility, which is, I mean, Phil, this guy's been under immense pressure, and he's maybe, this is all complete hypothetical here, but maybe he's nervous, even paranoid. And so this gun that he buys in January, he's now like looking at it to make sure it's functioning, that he's got it, and maybe it goes off. And maybe that's why it wasn't maybe a weird trajectory, or maybe because the trajectory said not to be that of a self-unaliving. Is that scenario, like, do you have to include, my question, Phil, is, do you have to include all of these possibilities in your investigation into this?
Well, of course you do. And when I see a statement like was made, that I forget the name, Allison or whoever that was, it says, "We do know," in all caps. How do you know that? Where that information coming from? How do you know that to an absolute certainty? that the San Francisco PD detectives have not been back to that scene? How do you know that? Where's that coming from? So all I'm saying is that until we know to a certainty that certain things were not done or that they were done, making these comments just adds further confusion to the overall investigation, and it doesn't help the family try to determine what happened to their loved one. Now, hiring the PI and all that stuff, and we've got these little pictures. I'm assuming these pictures were taken by who? The mother?
That's a great question. That's a great question because I don't think these were released. The mother, the father, a private investigator is what I'm assuming. Scott, did she indicate that one way or the other?
No, but she didn't indicate. And you're right. That was a great question we missed. But I imagined it was
more shots, by the way.
Personal.
The investigator, perhaps.
Somebody other than law enforcement.
So my question is this: so those pictures.
Hang on. Phil, I'm sorry. This is interesting. I never noticed this, but in this picture, if you look at the doorway, it looks like his father or someone is right there, which already is basically contaminating the crime scene. I mean, this is a person with no gloves walking in there.
If the scene's been released, that's why he's there, and they're in there doing the cleanup. So all I'm saying here is that if these are pictures, and I will say this in full disclosure, I've done the same thing with and what's the heritage of these folks?
They are Indian descent, I believe.
Indian descent. All right. I had a similar investigation with a similar group of people, and their loved one had done presumably what this young man had done. And police came out, did the deal, and I went in after all of that was done. The scene remained undisturbed. And I met with them, and I went in, I did my own processing of the scene, I filmed it, I took still shots and so forth and so on, and walked through the scene to determine if what we believe happened is in fact what happened. So I'm assuming that's what this PI is doing here. We're only seeing I guess where these pictures are coming from. So what I'm saying here, we're seeing this scene through not a terribly objective viewpoint. And you've got blood spatter on the wall. Looks like you've got high velocity blood spatter. Then you've got the pooling. I worked the scene where we had the same type of thing, and there was blood transfer all over the house. Blood transfer, drops, pooling, velocity, high velocity, medium velocity, low velocity blood spatter. It was all over the place. And it would appear that this person was murdered. As it turned out, this person was going through a physiological episode, either with their brain or their heart, and they were running around when this was happening. They were running around the house in a panic because they knew they were literally dying. So they were bouncing off. He hit a vent fan over the stuff and busted his head open. Pooling, drops of blood, spatter, transfer, and it was all over the place. We could tell where the guy ran and got to the bedroom, and eventually was pulling over pieces of furniture because of the reaction to what was happening to him. As it turned out, the autopsy revealed he died of natural causes. So I'm just saying, you cannot make a bunch of conclusions at the front end of these things. Any investigation I entered into, and I'm sure Troy would speak to that, and Scott, you have to be objective. You cannot go in predisposed to a conclusion. And again, this is so fresh. I just don't think there has been a conclusion made as of yet in finality, and it's not going to happen until they get those talk tests back, that that Emmy's report is finalized and their investigation is being conducted. Now, I don't have any idea. I don't know how we know that the family was being told it's closed, but yet they're telling the public it's open. Maybe that's coming from the family as well. I'm just saying here, and people will say, you know, well, I'm on the side of police. Look, I'm on the side of what's right. So I you know, if it sounds like I'm defending the process, I am, because you got to let the process work. And if there's at some point in time where it shows that somebody within the process did not do the right thing, then that should be revealed, and those people should be dealt with. But I'm just saying that come to these conclusions on a scene like this that only happened 3 months ago, not even that far along. I think it was in later November. So I'm just saying that rush to judgment on something like this, maybe good intentions, but it doesn't assist the family in dealing with it. And it's not a journey. You have taken the journey for the truth and you've taken it off somewhere else. And that's wrong. So I'm completely objective about this stuff. And, people don't like that. Well, that's too bad. I don't really care. But so I would just suggest that, what we're seeing here, we're seeing what we're being fed by the family and their PI. And I get that. But I'm not going to draw any conclusions just based on some pictures. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not going to do it.
I had a feeling Phil was going to say that. Dr. Detective, to you. So a couple things. As we're looking at this, and this is obviously the bathroom, and the parents said he was incredibly neat. One of the sort of the things that's floating out there, and I mean, I think this part of it is definitely true, is that he had privileged information and private information. But one of the things that's sort of been floated out there is that he had some sort of thumb drive on him. And that thumb drive could be a reason, was suggested, like why this garbage can's knocked over. The family has described it as the apartment being ransacked. And also you see here, there's he's in the process of eating, which is interesting because Ellen Greenberg, to compare and contrast, she was in the process of making a fruit salad. Now, I know people kind of can be impulsive, but Dr. Detective, there is no suicide note left. Absolutely no indication of wanting to harm himself. Friend said he was upbeat. He was a little nervous in recent months, and that's one of the reasons he got the weapon. But he had plans to start his own company. Let me hold it right there, and I got a follow-up for you. I mean, no suicide note. Does that mean anything to you as an investigator?
So again, another element we're going to look for. We're going to allow the evidence to lead us in what we're investigating and what we're seeing, what we're finding, what we're actually taking into evidence or preserving as evidence. Again, we live in a world of technology, so if there's no note, that doesn't mean there wasn't maybe a posting, if that should be the case on social media. A lot of different people communicate on a lot of different platforms, a lot of different ways. So, we've had cases whereas it would be a text message to a loved one, or maybe someone crying out for help if it wasn't unaliving, or it could be a physical note, or it could be a posting on a platform. So that's just one part of the case to consider. It's a consideration, but it's not the end all be all. Again, the totality of all the evidence, everything we're looking at. I was going to ask that question also about the photos. Are these crime scene photos or scene photos taken by the forensic unit or just personal? So that's
I believe, I'll find out, but I believe these were taken by a private investigator that the family is hired. The family's already spent in 2 months' time about $100,000. But Dr. Detective, there were some interesting pieces of evidence apparently found. To me, the most interesting is synthetic hair tufts, which would reveal some sort of wig. And I asked the mother and father, because this is a couple of months, not even a month, it's less than a month after Halloween, like, did he have a costume? She said he did not dress up for Halloween. But I mean, that's a little odd, synthetic hair tufts, because you're thinking a wig or a fake mustache or something.
Right.
Again, they point to this knocked over garbage can, which I know this potentially could have been if he didn't mean to do what he did, and then he's like in a panic. What do you make of those two things? And there's also, Scott, I don't really understand the wire. There was a suggestion about wireless earbuds. Did you follow that, Scott?
Yeah, if I remember, there were AirPods, and the way the mother was discussing that they were, and this is all coming from her, so I didn't see any pictures, that they were at two different positions far enough away from the body, which gave her an indication that he was hit from behind, and thereby they popped out. That's the info that was coming to us, but nothing. That was her discussion. All this being surmised by, of course, as Phil said, these are individuals that are coming into a scene afterwards and not knowing what's happening. So totally agree there. You do not go in predisposed. You must see everything in its totality.
Yeah. So, Dr. Detective, back to you. And hearing what you just heard, I mean, if he's smacked in the back of the head, hypothetically, I assume the autopsy will reveal blunt force trauma to the back of the head. But what do you make of what Scott just said, as well as the synthetic hair tufts is what's interesting to me? But I guess that.
So again, two things I'd like to add. So again, as Scott just mentioned, other individuals outside or private investigator, whomever, can build those kind of hypothetical scenarios. But again, to add to what Phil said, also trusting the process. There's a scientific method to how we do our job. There's protocols. That's where all the training factors in. So again, everything's in play or to be considered, but the evidence will show us what has been found or potentially what's there. And then there's the element of, for the AirPods, the forensic analysis of those AirPods. Again, if there was a blunt force trauma involved, the autopsy and the findings and the forensic report will share if there's any kind of bruises, if there's any kind of blunt force or potentially something of that nature. So the evidence has to lead. We can't just hypothetically say, well, this is what happened, and I think this is how he fell or what. And so it's contingent upon the condition of the scene, the condition of the body, condition of the evidence, and what we acquire and what we find. So again, we could have a lot of working theories, but what we can show and prove and what matches definitively with the evidence is another thing.
Yeah. So just some more background here. Parents did have this independent autopsy performed. They had an independent autopsy, and the doctor there made note, Fil Waters, the bullet goes from above the nose, I believe on the left side, down and is embedded in the brainstem. It doesn't actually hit the brain, and the pathologist who performed the autopsy suggested that it's an unusual way to self-unalive, that it's usually not done on a downward trajectory. Phil is shaking his head already. Let's hold it there. The question from Ned Smith also, Phil, is interesting, but first the trajectory, and then I'll get to Ned's question for you. Oh, that's my fault. Hold on. I have you muted. Hold up. Here we go. Okay, go ahead, Phil.
In terms of these second autopsies, look, the folks that are hired to do this, these forensic pathologists, they're not in there cutting down anything. They're taking, and I'm surprised they've released these already, but they're taking the photographs that were taken. They're taking the notes. In this case, there's not even a report. And they are examining those things. They're not in there cutting, and they're not in there looking. They're simply looking at what was revealed by the medical examiner who actually did the cutting. So their perspective of things. My first question is about the bullet, the trajectory. Look, I've seen bullets do all sorts of things, go all sorts of places. So that really, in isolation, means nothing to me. And what I'm most curious about is it a contact wound? Do we have tattooing? Do we have stippling? Do we have nothing? So that'll give you a perspective of where the gun was when the bullet was fired, when the round was fired. So that's my first question there. I mean, trajectory and that kind of thing.
Well,
Look,
Phil, if forgive me for my ignorance. If it's, by the way, they say, and I believe this, I asked, he's right-handed, but I think the trajectory is on the left side of the nose, so it would have been like this. But when you say tattooing, like, would they would know if the gun was on his skin or several inches or several feet away?
correct. So if it is a contact wound, if that muzzle is pressed up against the flesh and the trigger is pulled, let me tell you what, that gunpowder and the blast coming out of there is so hot, it literally tattoos the muzzle of the weapon to the skin. Can't take it off. It's there. It's like a tat. That's why they call it tattooing. Now, if the weapon is within 2 feet and fired, you're going to get the burning gunpowder that comes out of the end of the weapon and implants into the skin and burns itself into the skin. You cannot wipe off stippling. And depending on the concentration of the stippling, you're going to have an idea about how far away the weapon was when it was fired. If there is no stippling, then that means that the weapon was beyond 2 to 3 feet. So those kinds of things that have to be looked at, and this is what the ME is looking at, and those detectives that Troy has already talked about that are attending that autopsy, they're looking at those things, and they're discussing this with the ME as these things happen in real time. So I had a guy that tried to commit suicide. He put a 45 long Colt right here under his chin, pulled the trigger, and all he did was put a freaking chasm in his face. It split his face wide open. He missed his brain. He's laying on the floor. He blew his teeth and everything else all over the floor. And when I asked if he was still alive when I got there, and I asked him what he did, and he said, "I shot myself." I mean, look, trying to predict where bullets go and that kind of a thing, because it doesn't look right. I'm just telling you, you have to deal with what you have.
Yeah.
And so trajectory here and questioning the trajectory, you know, I'm sorry. By a second ME who's reading the notes. Again, there's no conclusions to this thing yet. We don't have the ME report. We don't have the tox test. We don't have whatever investigation is being conducted by San Francisco PD finished. So just saying, going off into these isolated areas and trying to speculate, to me as a detective, as a homicide detective, and I think Troy and Scott would agree with me, we don't deal in that kind of speculation.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yes.
As Troy's already said, we let the evidence lead us where we need to be. We don't take it some direction we might want it to go. And it's always a journey for the truth.
I don't know the answer here about whether law enforcement talked to friends, but I know the family has, and they said that, you know, he was a little stressed out, but really nothing out of the ordinary. He was just on a vacation and had plans to, again, start his own company and do things of that nature. Now, the mother did say, Dr. Detective, that the gun was found under his leg. Let's just leave it there. Is that surprising or expected, even in a self-unaliving, because you could potentially drop the gun and fall back on it? Do you make anything of the gun being under the leg?
So again, that's depending upon how she was told or how that information was delivered to her. This will go back to, like Phil said, the actual medical examiner at the scene and the condition of the scene. You know, was there any treatment? Was EMS there? Was he turned over by officers to look? I've had scenes whereas we'd have a victim in the home and a weapon in a certain location, and we later look at the body cam and the officers move the body. They turn the guy over and then turn him back over, and you're screaming at the body cam, you know, because we see this later, right? This is after the scene, after we're back in the office. We obtain all the evidence and get a chance to look at everything. So you don't always learn, you know, the changes that may have taken place. And also in a situation of unaliving, often if that person's found by loved ones, depending upon their condition or their reasoning or lifestyle, family can change the scene or maybe try to get them dressed or move the weapon for whatever reason. So a lot of different reactions based on emotion and the trauma they're experiencing. So that doesn't, not denying what she's saying, but again, the initial response, initial crime scene photos or scene photos, evidence and everything, sketches, 360 scans and so forth will tell us position and everything and location of evidence.
Duffster, we're gonna go like probably 10 more minutes. I'm gonna also do some weird stories of the week. Feel free to tell me to buzz off and you can leave if you want to do that, or if you want to stick around. Obviously, everyone loves soothing Scott on a Friday. It calms the nerves. Don't want to guilt you into it, but it's your call.
Keep going. 10 minutes.
So one of the questions, which is interesting, you look at this picture, Scott. You look at this picture, Scott. You look at this picture, Scott. You look at, do I have another one? No, I don't. You look at these pictures. Yes, I do. You look at this picture. You look at this picture. Someone said or asked, do these look like, does it look like the scene of a self-unaliving? Is there such a thing, Scott Duffey, like in your career, are self-unaliving scenes uniquely one way, or do they all sort of, that was Ned Smith's question. Look at this. I get yelled at if I don't ask a question right away. But Scott Duffey, is there something that's unique to self-unaliving scenes that's different from a homicide or an accidental death scene?
I would say no. Every scene is different. You're talking about each and every human being that decides to do something, whether against themselves or somebody comes in and is part of the equation. It's amazing what is left behind. And that's why an evidence response is important. If to the initial arriving officers, this looks something that I need additional eyes on, securing this. That's why it's all very important and decided upon the arriving officers, the supervisors who are arriving, etc. And I can go with whatever is decided upon by law enforcement when, as Troy and Phil have mentioned, once everything comes out in totality and you read it and you're like, yeah, everything was done by the book. This was treated as a suspicious death, something that cried. There was crime scene units, even though the mother may not have seen them. We're going off of what is information given to us by public. And so thereby, we could all make conjectures, but yes. So as I looked at the scene, my thought is, if I was arriving on that scene, I would be saying I need additional resources, and I think this has got to go into a crime scene unit and a supervisor's. For example, Phil being an homicide, he's not getting called out to every death scene, but they may be conferring with their specialized units to say, do you want to come out here because this is what I'm seeing, etc. No different than an ME. I've been to scenes where an ME is going to say, I'm not coming out there. So tell me, officer, you're my eyes and ears. And it could be an older individual that life had expired, and so I'm giving a play-by-play scene. So it all comes down to the department and their protocols and so forth. This is a sizable department. Now, with regards to the crime scene, the photos given to us, it does beg the question. Okay, there are things that seem out of place in addition to like blood spatter and so forth. But I totally agree with Phil and Troy with regards to, if this was not an instant incapacitation and this was an unaliving or an accidental, it doesn't necessarily, it could be somebody who's not trained with a gun but decides, if I bought my gun 10, 11 months ago out of fear of the unknown, why that night he could have been racking around doing whatever it is, and then something tragic had taken place, but it wasn't finite. It didn't end everything. It didn't incapacitate him, and so he's going about doing things, and then of course falling to the end. So all those things can come in place. I would love to see if he has photos on his phone. I have photos of my house, my interior. I wouldn't take my and law enforcement shouldn't take the family as the end um discussion that, oh, he's always very neat. Well, maybe perhaps that night he's not neat. I'm looking at sleep pills, ibuprofen, and things like that. So there could be things going on in his life that had taken place unbeknownst to family and friends, but could be on a phone. For example, maybe he took a picture of his desk that captures that whole house apartment the night before, and we're like, oh, it was a mess. And a garbage can over, if that is near the body, it could be EMS, police kicking over by mistake. So I totally agree with everything. Body cam photos and so forth do show a lot more. And once it all comes out, if it looks like there were missteps, then yes, there will be more questions.
Yeah, and Scott correctly points out that is an ibuprofen bottle or container, whatever you call that, on the right, and then you see a sleep, like a melatonin. I can't tell what the thing that's on its side is. You see the food, and then here, people were asking about this, which I was just taking a closer look at. If I can find the photo, not here. That thing up against like the
rug.
with a rug, that looks almost like a tooth to me. I don't know what that is, but the other thing,
No, I think that's the AirPod.
That's the AirPod. That's it. Looks like it. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's the AirPod, and then the other thing closer to the base, whatever the hell you call the baseboard, that looks like a flossing, thing you use to floss, which is
correct.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the garbage is tipped over. One more question here, then we'll do some. I don't know if I call them lighter stories, but other stories.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah, but first let me ask you a question, and then you make the comment because I was going to throw
Well,
you.
no, let me make my comment first. Let me make my comment first. So go back to the picture of the desk with the headset and all that. So we're talking here about what we're seeing. So I'm more curious about what we don't see. I don't see a laptop. I don't see a cell phone. I think that may be a case. So, and I haven't read where the parents have mentioned anything about those types of things, unless I am not reading the right thing. But so my curiosity is where did those go? So did the police have them, which is my speculation that they have them, and they're going to download whatever they have, whatever they're going to use off of that cell phone or off of that laptop. They're going to do a forensic analysis of that digital equipment. So again, early on into this thing, and there's a whole lot yet to be done before we come to a conclusion.
So
now,
Phil,
what question, Joel?
Yeah, so what? It's hilarious. Like I was gonna win that. So you see some questions here from Zoe Horn or comments. Something is off with Altman. Sam Altman is the head of OpenAI. He's now going to sue me for reading that comment. Altman wanted to meet with Suchir's family right away. They refused. Did they mention that, Scott? I don't remember them mentioning that. That Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, wanted to meet with them. I don't.
Yeah.
Because I think they would have mentioned that, but they did not say that to us, at least. Has law enforcement investigated the bad guys? Who they were exposing. He was exposing. I don't know that he was exposing specific people, but more the practices. But Phil, my question to you: the mother made it a point to say he was a very kind of loving, jovial guy, gets along with everybody, but he spoke badly about Sam Altman, who is the kind of the tech guru, Silicon Valley guy who runs this company. That he sort of had disdain for this guy, and she pointed out, and it's interesting because it was in the news recently that his own sister had filed a lawsuit against him, accusing, having nothing to do with this, but I'm just putting it out there, accusing him of sexually abusing her, his own sister. So there's like some weird stuff floating out there. And then Elon Musk is fighting with Sam Altman, and Elon Musk tweeted out that something doesn't seem right about this. And so is Tucker Carlson. So that kind of adds to, if there are conspiracy theorists out there, this becomes a mess now, because people like me hear about it, and then we do stories on it. So I'll let you have the final word, having said all that, and then we'll go on to some other stories.
Well, these types of cases take on a life of their own. The information we're being given about the son, now you got the sister involved with the son. Look, this is all coming from the family. They are not giving you an objective viewpoint. They're very subjective. They have their own opinions, observations, and they're all emotionally based. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Now, in terms of people like Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk getting involved in this kind of stuff and making comments out of hand, I would just say that individuals like that, whoever they are, whether it's Elon, Tucker, or whomever, may get involved in this thing and making comments. My advice to them would be to stay in your own lane. And because those kind of comments do nothing. I'm all about the investigation. I'm all about what is good for the investigation and the final outcome that gets us to the truth. And those kind of comments made by whomever do not facilitate the investigation. So, again, stay in their own lane, keep their mouth shut, and go on and talk about things they have some knowledge about.
There you go. Oh, look at this. Who doesn't? Cake Spoo coming to us from, I never know if it's Australia or New Zealand, because I don't know the difference between the flag. I keep saying I'm going to educate myself. I love Scott Duffey. So, Scott, your Commonwealth has some interesting stories I've noticed, because you're on my show, and I know you live there. And so I get, I notice when stories are from your home area there. So in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, there's a 46-year-old woman. Her name is Jane A. White. She was found fatally shot on a street in North Cumberland County, PA. You familiar with North Cumberland? Where is that, Scott?
I've heard of it. I don't. Yeah. I know it's in excess of an hour plus. I just don't know if it's closer to Pittsburgh or the middle of the state. I want to say it's upper northwest, midwest of the state. A couple hours from me.
Yeah. By the way, Jimmy McNutty, my good old friend, one of my original bromances here. By the way, Jimmy, have you seen there needed to be another OJ doc. I was kind of watching it as background noise on Netflix. It's like a 5-episode series. It's pretty interesting. But Jimmy, wondering if you saw that. But he said you can't always trust everything the parents are saying, which is true in all due respect to the parents, because kids at 26 are sometimes telling their parents things differently than what they're telling their friends. But anyway, back to the story, Scott Duffey. The woman is Jane White. Her boyfriend's a guy named Jared Wolf. And he was arrested after his own brother calls 911 and says that Jared called the brother and told him that he shot this woman. And this is all in a police affidavit. And I'm trying to find, and he's charged with first-degree murder. But the reason, where is this? Oh, this man said that he had put up a paranormal meter and claimed that the high reading on the purported meter scared him, per the affidavit, and he became so scared that he had to kill her. Have you in your life, in your career, ever had someone claim that the paranormal meter was in excess of what a normal paranormal meter should be, and therefore was compelled to murder to make sure that the paranormal meter did not go any higher than it already was? Are you surprised, as I like to ask you?
I'm not surprised, but I could say I have not come across a situation like that.
There's a little more, Scott, and then we'll pivot to the next one here. Jared Wolf stated in this affidavit that this woman who he killed, Jane White, and her friends were all also trying to kill him and eat him. And that's why he panicked and ran out. Again, have you ever seen someone fearful that they would be eaten and therefore commit a crime?
Not in a typical fashion. Though this does remind me of Christmas. I believe it was Christmas morning 20, it might have been 2020. Metro Nashville PD arriving to a camper that eventually exploded early in the morning, and the individual in that camper believed that there were alien entities that needed to be eradicated, and that's a possibility why the camper exploded. So,
I just can't get anything by Phil or Scott. This one, Dr. Detective, there are Amish in Scott's home state, but this happened in Minnesota, Dr. Detective. This is an interesting case. This is a set of twins. A Minnesota woman, she's now facing over a dozen felony charges over the deaths, very sadly, of 2 children in an Amish buggy crash. But she's reached a plea agreement with prosecutors. The woman's name is Sarah Peterson. What's interesting about this, on September 25th, 2023, Sarah has a twin sister, Samantha Peterson, who was behind the wheel of an SUV that crashed into this buggy. And so the twin was trying to take responsibility for the other twin. So now they're both in trouble. They figured this out through different data analysis, search warrants, things of that nature. And now the other one faces 21 felony charges. So a twin was trying to take the blame for the sibling twin, and now they're both in hot water. Kind of interesting to me. Have you ever had a situation, right now we're doing a case about the Alexander brothers who are, that they are charged with at least 42 counts of aggravated SA and the R word. But they would often, there's 3 brothers. One is a set of twins. They would often switch identities and trick women. But in this case, have you ever seen twins try to trick police?
So maybe more of a minor offense, like a traffic offense. I've had brothers that have posed as the other brother, like they know each other's social security number, something that minor, but not in a case of trauma per se that I've experienced. But I'm sure it has happened or has been attempted. We have a charge called misrep ID, so if that would be the case for a lot of different scenarios. But no personal cases I've investigated where someone was taking the blame.
Now, Dr. Detective, I can't really get anything by Phil and Scott. Do you feel that at this point, 32 years or whatever it is into your career, even though you look 32, do you feel jaded? Like, is there, when you're reading the paper or you're looking at, whatever's on the internet and you see something like the paranormal meter, do you even react or do you just go, it's another day?
So I wouldn't say jaded. I try not to be. That's probably more detrimental to me because I still care. You have to care about people to help them, right?
Yeah.
So I think one other discussion we had, Phil mentioned, you asked him one word to sum it up, and I can't remember. I think he gave 3. But compassion goes a long way, right? Even in all these cases, when you're dealing with family, when you're dealing with any scenario, and the saying, you get more bees with honey. We make it a habit to go to the family, right, in any scenario and say, hey, we introduce ourselves. I'm Detective so-and-so. Here's my card. If you hear anything, and I've been surprised in many scenarios that maybe not direct family or a cousin or a relative will contact to say, hi, I know this person you may want to look at because they have different access to different social media and so forth, and just being present in the room, right? So again, compassion goes a long way. I think I got off track of the original question.
No. That's a phenomenal answer, and I could totally see how that is your MO.
I'm not jaded
Buttercup.
Anyway, so.
I can tell you, I'm jaded just from being in media so long.
I got you.
But,
yeah. Gotcha.
Fil Waters, to you, and we're wrapping. I promise. Scott is placing his third bet of the day on the Eagles. He's not telling me anything. He's also putting at least one bet on the Chiefs just to hedge his potential losses. But Fil Waters, I need to unmute you now. This is right up your alley here. Phil, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. I think you're muted on your own. I can't oh, there you go. Phil, approximately 100,000 eggs valued at $40,000. Once again, stolen from a truck in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania said the incident occurred on February 1st at 8:40 p.m. It occurred at Pete and Jerry's Organics in Greencastle, PA. You familiar with that, Scott Duffey? Greencastle, PA. No. Okay, so the quote is here. This is important. Pete and Jerry's, Phil, is aware of a recent incident in Franklin County, PA. We're actively working with local law enforcement to investigate. We take this matter of the 100,000 eggs seriously, and we are committed to resolving it as quickly as possible. Due to the ongoing investigation, we cannot comment any further on this matter. I think that's an excellent whatever it is, press release from the police. Phil, could you ever write a press release as serious as that for 100,000 eggs being stolen? That you're taking the matter seriously, you're doing your due diligence, you are investigating. And also, Violet has a great question. Is egg theft on the rise with the higher price of eggs?
Well, of course it is. The eggs are the new cocaine. So, because there were, I think, like 100,000 chickens that were disposed of because of the threat of some sort of disease. I don't know if it's salmonella, whatever it was, has caused the cost of eggs to skyrocket. So they are the commodity of the fresh commodity of new theft in our world today. So I'm not surprised at all. And look, when you consider that amount of eggs that were stolen, that is serious. That is serious stuff. So yeah, it would not be hard to write a serious press release regarding the theft of that type of item in today's world. So yeah, that is serious.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot. It is a lot of eggs. This can't be accurate. I think she might mean one container, one egg per customer at my Trader Joe's of this morning. How much is the cost of a dozen eggs right now? Let me see if Siri can tell me that real quick.
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
What does a dozen eggs cost right now?
I buy them quite often. I got a big.
What's the answer, Scott?
So, depending, the cheapest one at my local Giant is $7.99, and they go up to $13, $14.
What?
Grade. Yeah.
Really? I had no idea. This is crazy.
It's shocking how.
Look at Annalie French. She is corroborating Scott's sketchy story. Noticed higher egg prices when I was at the store this morning. Yeah, egg prices are through the roof. I didn't realize it was that. Super Planner Girl says 5 to 7. Look at this. Julie Fru's in the UK, $3. I don't know if that's pounds or dollars or whatever. We'll wrap this up because I've tortured Scott more than I should have.
Yeah, she may have gotten her numbers. She may have gotten her numbers mixed up because I did read that there were 100,000 chickens, I think, or 100 million chickens, whatever it was, that were killed. So she may have gotten her numbers mixed up there, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
What did the press release say? How many eggs were stolen?
No, they said 100,000. That was the press release.
In the press release.
Yeah, it said 100,000.
Well, then it was probably 100,000. I mean, that's going
100,000 eggs valued at around 40,000. If I could do math,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
I should have my daughter figure out how much one egg was worth. Then, if 100,000 are stolen, it's 40,000. Scott, can you figure that out in real time right now? How much one egg would be if the 100,000 eggs were stolen at $40,000 for the entire total? How much is one egg?
Isn't it 40 cents?
Sounds right, actually. Sounds kind of right, actually. I think you're right. I'm amazed. Anyway, the Super Bowl is this weekend. They say that interest in Super Bowl ads has actually waned over the years. Dr. Detective, what do you think an ad on the front end of the Super Bowl, 30 seconds, what's it going for these days? Give me a number.
Wow. I'm sure it's going to be several million easily.
It 7 to 8 million now. Was last time I did a Super Bowl story, it was $1 million for 30 seconds, but now it is 7 to 8 million. The price is dropping dramatically towards the back half. This year, look out. I haven't heard much about him at all in recent years. Seal, the music legend, who is at one point, I think, married to Heidi Klum. He is actually in the Super Bowl ad. They're turning him into a seal. So he's going to be Seal, the seal. He's actually going to have seal the head, and the body is that of a seal, and he will be moving around, I'm sure, with the help of CGI. We can't miss that. And last but not least, this is for Phil to comment on here. Last time, Phil, we talked about, I think it was elephants in Colorado suing the Supreme Court of Colorado for elephant rights. Well, they lost, but in New Zealand, Mount Taranaki has now legally been deemed as a person after being granted all the rights and responsibilities of a human by the government of New Zealand. So now Mount Taranaki is legally considered to be a person, a human being. Phil Waters, if you have any thoughts on that.
Say that again. What is this what is this thing that's been declared a person?
It's a mountain in New Zealand. It is now legally recognized as a person because it was granted all the rights and responsibility. How does anyone watch this? This is amazing. My dad would have turned this off like this.
And this was a New Zealand court that did this?
Yeah, my dad didn't watch TV. My dad thought everything was just dumb. It had to be like intellectual. My dad would have been so embarrassed for him.
He's not too far off, but
yeah. Yeah, this is New Zealand. It's a mountain. And they're trying to protect the mountain. So they gave it extra protection, I guess. I don't know from what, goat, sheep, something. And it's now known as Taranaki Manga, which is its Maori name. And it means now that it has all the rights, powers, duties, and responsibilities of a person. Phil Waters. Usually you go last, Phil. Today we'll have you go first, Phil.
Well, they're idiots.
I'm a horrible person. I kept Scott 31 minutes beyond what I said. I guess that's Phil's final thought. We'll give the Super Bowl guy the final word. So, Dr. Detective, Super Bowl weekend. What is a weekend like in the life of Dr. Detective? I feel like you're like a student, like you're studying, you're working on a podcast, you're doing stuff like that. Am I far off?
I think you're probably right. My wife's like, yeah, you need to do something fun, right? I'm somewhere probably creating or writing a book or reading some article of to level up my base of knowledge. But yeah, it's but that's fun to me. So
does she bug you to go out, like go to the movies? Is she like, doctor, you're too serious, you got a PhD, you're a detective, like loosen up a little? She do that?
Yeah, she does. We make time and balance, so she doesn't even take me serious, right? So I don't take myself serious, right? So but yeah, so it usually takes other people to say something, and she's like, oh, but then she brushes me off. So
there you go. Scott Duffey, today you're in your Eagles jersey. Affectionately people call them the Eagles. I had to listen to that annoying fight song on the entire flight up. On, by the way, Frontier Airlines. I was terrified, but it's a nice airline. It's decent size. Scott Duffey, what are you doing for the Super Bowl? How do you start the weekend? And let's hope they win, because it's going to be a very difficult day in Philadelphia if they lose on Monday. But go ahead.
We're doing a family. We don't go out anymore. We used to go quite a few years to parties, and ultimately it came down to, wow, we have to leave early in order for kids to go to school. So it didn't work out. So we enjoy now just watching, getting all the good food that's out there. So it's absolutely going to be a Birds win.
There you go. By the way, something happened on my side, so I can't even end the show with a closing. But Dr. Detective, let me ask all three of you this real quick, and then we'll go. Is your wife impressed that you are a homicide. Well, now you're not, but you were a homicide detective. Did that impress her? Is that how you originally got her? That you were in law enforcement and you're like, I'm a detective? Because that's kind of like a cool thing to say you are.
Well, for me, ironically, we met while I was working in patrol, and she actually was scammed, right? So it's ironic, it came full circle. Someone stole her check, and she accuses me of like thinking, oh, I'm looking at her like she had something to do with this. But I gave her good information to protect herself. A lot of what I do now, because I work financial crime. So
Yeah.
the homicide portion, she, I don't know if she was impressed. She never really said that. But, when you work a case, as this gentleman know, and you've been at the scene and you've seen the bodies and the trauma, and then you come home and she's watching first 48 and or whatever, or
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let me go to the other room, and then I come back. I'm like, all right, let's get back to something less, like work. So
Yeah.
I don't think
that's actually a fact. Fil Waters, is your wife a big true crime fan? And did she fall for you because you were this rugged, undercover street patrol narcotics officer?
No and no.
Does she brag about you to other people? Did she say, do you know that my husband is the legendary detective Fil Waters? Does she say that?
Oh, no, of course not. And she's proud of what I did, but in terms of her bragging on me, she brags more on the fact that I'm
that he has 2 Ferraris,
a husband and a father and a grandfather. So
there you go,
and a good friend to those that are friends of mine. So a little bit deeper than just the image. And I actually met her when I was in the Marine Corps, so it was kind of a love at first sight kind of thing to the most literal extent. So it was, it's an awesome story.
That's a beautiful story, and I can see why she fell for you, Scott. Of course, I have to ask you: does your wife, and then we're saying goodbye, does your wife brag that her husband is a retired FBI special agent? Do your kids go to school and say, "My dad is a retired FBI special agent"? Because I would do that if my dad was retired.
No, I don't think so. But my wife, she's a nurse. She's a school nurse. So, the nurses have they just have a great outlook on life, very much like cops. That's why probably you see so many nurses and cops together. But like Troy, I was in patrol when I went to a burglary call. And
so this is how they pick up the women. It's on the calls.
Yeah.
And what happened?
My wife and her then girlfriend roommate, were burglarized, and I made a couple of off the cuff bad remarks, saying, so who lives here? You two? Why is the seat up? And it must be somebody. It's like just made some off the cuff. Never solved the case. So.
In today's world, that would get you guys fired.
That would.
So I will say that
right.
Years later, so I meet my wife on a blind date, and it's her roommate that says, I think that's the guy that was really an a-hole that came into our apartment. And sure enough, I went back and I researched, and I was the a-hole. And it's happily ever after.
Amazing. Scott Duffey, I hope you're putting that toilet seat down. That is a lesson to be learned for everyone. Love you, America. Thank you for being here. Sorry, I was a little heated up today. Thank you to Dr. Detective for filling in for Phil, who showed up. So got more bang for our buck. Phil, have fun. Phil's visiting grandkids. Scott Duffey, go Eagles. Let's do this. I have no close here. I'm just going to end the stream. It's going to be abrupt, but I don't know what's going on back here. Love you.